So as Church already mentioned, Nettie can't be here today. She's the Vice Chancellor for the research at UAF. And so she asked me to say a few words about UAF research before handing the floor over to my colleagues and collaborators on the GeoData Cooperative. Okay, so I'm going to talk about UAF in the context that we've kind of been talking about today, the context of Fairbanks, the community. I'm going to use these two numbers to illustrate my point. 425 million was UAF's operating budget in 2020. That's almost $500 million going in through Fairbanks. 3,209, that's the number of people UAF employed in 2020. And I have an asterisk, actually, before I go on, for comparison with this crowd, that's a little bit more than the number of active duty airmen and women at Eielson Air Force Base. And I put the little asterisk there because I didn't mention the students. If I add in our 7,500 students, we get a much bigger number of people in Fairbanks at UAF. And now the comparison becomes between us and Wainwright. Wainwright's active duty personnel plus their dependent spouses plus the civil contractors. So that's more apples to apples. We got a big footprint in Fairbanks, in the interior, in Alaska, and in the Arctic, and this is where our energy goes. We research the Arctic, from detecting earthquakes, to downlinking satellite data, to the suicide prevention programs you already heard about. This is our bag, and UAF really wants to help DoD solve their Arctic problems. We want to connect and help get our subject matter researchers in with your problems so we can figure this out as the Arctic changes. And to that end, UAF has created some research portfolios to help DoD come to us and help us funnel you to the right people that you want to talk to in these 6 kind of overall categories. We're going to be hosting a workshop in October to try and make these connections and facilitate those conversations. I really hope to see you all there. That was my quick plug on behalf of Dr. Nettie LaBelle-Hamer, and I'm going to pass it over to my DoD and industry collaborators to talk about a kind of textbook example of a project at UAF that is solving DoD problems today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Buurman. Cathleen, you've got the floor.
All right, thank you. So my name's Cathleen. I work for NGA. I manage our elevation domain there for the DoD and the IC. We're going to speak a little bit today about the GeoData Cooperative, right? So it's pretty cool because we're not just going to talk about how we can partner and do some cool stuff with academia and industry. We're going to talk a little bit today and Evan's going to provide us some good examples on what we've been doing over the past few years, right? Just to give you a little bit of a background on what NGA's mission is for elevation data specifically. So we do air, land, sea, space, and science. In the science area, which elevation falls under, so we're responsible for providing the entire global elevation model, whatever resolution, pretty tight accuracies for the defense and IC community. It's a heavy lift. Typically in the past years, we rack and stack all the requirements from all the commands, and we have a budget that we work with every year, right? And within that budget, we're only about, luckily, if we can meet 30% of those requirements off of the commands, we're lucky, right? So as missions changing, we need higher resolution and all sorts of stuff, we're like, well, we got to change our business model because our customers are going to different members of industry and purchasing data sets, which might not be reliable data sources, right? So we're switching this model, and we formed the GeoData Cooperative a couple years ago here, basically first in Fairbanks, which is great, right? So the GeoData Cooperative was our innovative way to not contract out all of our data with the X amount of dollars that we had to get these global requirements. So we said, let's pull together different government folks, academia, .com, .mil, some heavy hitters in industry to transform what we're doing to create that global model of the Earth, right? So we have ASF here. They're a member of the cooperative, Lockheed Martin, right? So ASF helps us with our change detection piece and stuff and how we're going to update our models and whatnot. Lockheed Martin, kind of, we say the under the hood, kind of production pieces of the DEMS that they create for us. So they do a lot of that work that's not seen. GeoYeti, which is sitting here, does our mission outreach and engagement. GeoNorth, many of you guys might know them, Alaska Native-owned small business that actually does the production for us and serves us the data. Oak Ridge National Lab, they do our classified side of the production that we feed into our unclassified model at the end. And KD Geospatial-Intelligence, kind of strategic management for us, right? So pretty cool. All these different folks never done this in the past within government to achieve our global model. So what we're doing is taking unclassified source and classified source and able to make a global best of breed of an unclassified model, right? So this is all done through automation. Pretty neat stuff. And this cooperative, right, as we said, multiple different workflows at country production levels, which is huge because in the past we could get little dots of data smaller than cities that we're serving out to our defense and IC partners, right? So we're enabling global scope, not just a one-time scope. We're gonna use change detection to do these updates off of it and keep these models fresh for our customers. So this is, significant cost savings for us to do it this way. Using our same dollars, just working a bit smarter. And so this cool model that GeoYeti created for us here shows and is highlighted where we have data now. We refer to it as DGED 2 meter, and the globe will be updated. So as we get more data, we'll have the darker areas of interest. We started in the Arctic to prove out in a safer space. It's 100% done. Glad to say we're moving outside of other areas, and this is at the 2 meter resolution, and this will be populated. We're hoping about 3 to 4 years we'll have the globe done for unclassified government purpose rights and ability to do some uplifts if we need to do some public stuff. But that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Evan here to discuss a little bit the cooler stuff, the importance of the elevation models and what it's used for.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. Evan, you've got the floor.
Thank you. Elevation data isn't sexy, but as you can see from these photos, it's necessary. If you live in the state of Kansas, maybe not so much. But here in Alaska and the Arctic, as you can see, elevation data is of vital importance. I'm just going to talk through, and I'll cheat a little reading, some applications, both military and civil and environmental. On the military side, line of sight analysis, cover and concealment planning, helicopter landing zones, of which I'll show you an example, weapons fan analysis, mobility corridor and avenues of approach analysis, among others. On the civil and environmental applications, we're talking shoreline delineation and sea level rise, floodplain management, urban environmental planning, air navigation and safety, telecommunication network design, planting and irrigation strategies, as well as disaster risk management, such as landslide probability. Let me talk about a nice example here. So this is Bravo Battery, one of the locations within the Joint Pacific-Alaska Range Complex, and this portion of it is east of Eielson Air Force Base. This is where one of the areas that the F-35s train on. This is a high-resolution commercial image, so it's unclassified. High resolution, I believe it's a Maxar image at the 50 centimeter level, I believe. But as you see, it's a two-dimensional image, okay? Gives no idea of sort of slope, elevation, and you show this to a pilot, yeah, they know what they're going to be seeing, but they have no idea about, is this flat, is this not flat? So combined with elevation data, you can do some pretty cool things. Taking an image of the same site in winter, okay, which is on the left, and again, that's 50 centimeter resolution, and combining it with that 2 meter digital surface model, okay, that the GeoData Cooperative has created, and that's what the model looks like when you ingested into GIS software, such as Socket GXP or ArcGIS. When you drape that imagery over that elevation model, that's what you get. That is not a photograph. People accuse me of taking a photograph and pretending, but that's actually the imagery draped over the elevation model. I'm not an F-35 pilot, but if I was, I would say that's a lot more useful than the image we saw 2 slides earlier. So that's just an idea of, just sort of a basic idea of what elevation can bring to the table. Using elevation models as well in cutting-edge GIS software, you can create different types of analyses. Here, what you're seeing is Spencer Glacier, and what we did here was identify go and no-go zones as it pertains to helicopter landing zones. Okay, the yellow is depending how the helicopter pilot is feeling and the weather, but red, obviously, no chance, and green, that's where you could land based on slope, obviously staying away from any of the red areas. This is Spencer Glacier flowing into Spencer Lake. The DoD just hosted a planning conference for summer 2022 Operation Eldridge Glacier, which they'll be conducting. That's a personnel recovery mission for an accident that happened, I believe it was in the 50s, but DoD has not been able to really, based on sort of the extreme terrain and weather, has not been able to get out there to, consistently to conduct the operation and personnel recovery. They're making a real concerted effort to do this next summer, and they just hosted a planning conference, and I believe it's next week. Park Service will be flying a reconnaissance mission over Eldridge Glacier. In support of that, we will be creating helicopter landing zones, both for the reconnaissance mission and then for next summer's operation as well. Lastly, moving beyond elevation data, what we have found, because the GeoData Cooperative, when we stood up, our focus was on Arctic and the Alaska, is that there is a serious just lack of data in general here. Not just elevation data, but just foundation data in general. Okay, and some of the reasons, right? You get climate change, okay, opening up the sea lanes for much greater portion of the year than ever before. On the right side, you have our friend, this is a 2D map going back. You have our friend Vladimir Putin reconstituting Soviet legacy military bases and building new ones in the Arctic. And then as General Crum mentioned earlier, when we look at a true map, not a grade school map that I saw, up on my elementary school wall that had Alaska on the top left with the Aleutian Islands trailing off to the edge of the map, or a even smaller map of the United States where Alaska was a giant island above Hawaii. But an actual map, you see that, as General Crum said, the most strategic place on Earth, right? Combined with the fact that Alaska falls in the seam of multiple combatant commands, and you all know this, right? But you have Indo-PACOM, which owns most of the forces and all the toys, okay? The actual sort of ground we stand on is NORTHCOM, right? Alaskan Command, the sub-unified command under NORTHCOM. Russia is the purview of EUCOM, and obviously there's a huge STRATCOM mission here as well, okay? So while that speaks to the importance of this area, it turns out there's a lack of dedicated support to DoD here in Alaska. One of the issues, too, is out of sight, out of mind from the 3-letter agencies back in DC, right? And it's kind of understandable because your intelligence analysts and the data folks at NGA, they get a little squeamish when you ask them to conduct analysis and provide support to the military within the United States, right? So they're real good at doing it the minute, hey, I need to look at, say, the Russian bases that the bombers are coming over on a daily basis. Yeah, they'll be all over that. But if you ask them to help support, say, the range here in Alaska, they get a little more squeamish. And it's understandable because they are intelligence analysts. So the result is there's a lack of support here. As a result, the GeoData Cooperative is standing up what we're calling a GeoData support cell here in Fairbanks, based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, which is a multidisciplinary team providing 100% dedicated data and GIS support to the military here in Alaska. So we just sort of full mission capability about 2 weeks ago. I got my Common Access card appointment on Friday at Buckley Air Force Base in Colorado, where I live. But the team will be based up here. So in the next week or two, I encourage everyone to, you can email us, supportcell@geodatacooperative.com. Our elevation models are in GRID. GRID is a joint NGA, Army Corps of Engineers data repository. And you can access GRID with a username and password. That gives you some access to the stuff within GRID. Or if you have a CAC, a Common Access Card, you get access to a lot more stuff within GRID. Okay, and that's the address where you can access our elevation models. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a round of applause for Helena, Kathleen, and Evan.
Well done.
Thank you all. Very well done.